Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, hope you all had a great weekend, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Things are finally starting to get back on track around here. As I'm sure most of you are aware, we didn't bury Eddie, we cremated him on Thursday. And yes, as I'm sure many of you noticed, because hundreds of you tuned in to watch the live stream of the funeral, which was a fantastic service by the way. Eddie's sister's speech was, well, it didn't leave a dry eye in the house. But yeah, as I'm sure most of you probably noticed, yes, I turned up late for my own best friend's funeral. I know Eddie would have seen the funny side. But technically we weren't late. We were actually a minute early, but apparently they started early because they thought everybody had already arrived. But whatever, what are you going to do? As one of the executors of Eddie's estate, and the only one who lives within 50 miles of Eddie's home, I do still have a lot of stuff to do. But the big part's behind us now. And I've got a busy week coming up this week as well. I'm actually, well, as you're sitting down and watching this episode of Mingles with Jingles on the day it's published, I'm in London. And I've actually been in London overnight. I had to travel down on Sunday in order to get to London in time for the thing that I had to get to London for. And I just have to go and check and see exactly what it is I'm able to tell you about it, so I don't end up breaking any non-disclosure agreements. All of which meant, of course, that I had to get this video and tomorrow's video, because I won't be back until late Monday night, done on the weekend. So it's been a busy weekend, and it's going to be an even busier week. Right, well, thanks to the magic of video editing, I've just checked whether or not I'm actually going to get into any trouble for telling you why I'm in London on Monday, and it turns out I'm not. So here's the story. Do you remember Fractured Space? It's a game I used to cover a couple of years ago. Prior to Fractured Space, they were the team that were responsible for a game called Strike Suit Zero that you may have heard of. It was a moderate success on Steam, and it cost them pennies to make because they were a small indie company. And with the success of that, they were able to start a new company called Edge Case Games and develop Fractured Space. Now, the CEO of the dev team that did Strike Suit Zero, and that became Edge Case Games, is one of my friends. His name's James Brooksby, and he's been making games since forever. With the success of Fractured Space, I mean, it wasn't a huge success, but it kept the lights on and it kept everybody fed and paid for a couple of years. But eventually they realised they were going to have to wrap things up. And that's when Wargaming came in, and they bought the team out and renamed them Wargaming Guildford. The team are busy doing some top secret project for Wargaming, whatever. I honestly have no idea. But under the terms of the buyout deal, Wargaming weren't allowed to fire anybody. They had to retain the full team, because James wanted to make sure that everybody still had a job when they got bought out, including himself. He was going to stay on as the CEO of Wargaming Guildford. But Wargaming being Wargaming, and I don't actually know how much of this I'm supposed to be able to tell you, let's just say it probably doesn't come as a great surprise to anybody to know that they sort of started sidelining James and basically left him with nothing to do other than draw a paycheck. Now, I'm sure that would be fine for a lot of people. Sounds like a good deal to me, but not James. He wants to make games. It's what keeps him going. So he eventually took the hint, quit, and formed yet another tiny indie games development company. They're called Absolutely Games, and they've had a project in the pipeline for a couple of years now. In fact, I saw it when literally James was the only person working on it. The stuff he can do with the 3D engine is nothing short of amazing. And I played it when it was in alpha, when he'd added a couple of members to the team. I mean, they're a very, very small company, but they've just picked up a publisher. You may have heard of them. Not a huge publisher. We're not talking Electronic Arts or Blizzard Activision here, but you may have heard of Team 17. They did a lot of games on the Commodore Amiga back in the early days. Games like Alien Breed, and then later on, you've probably heard of Worms. These days, they mostly just publish stuff. They don't really develop their own games anymore, but they've picked up Classified France 1944, which is the title of James's new game, and they're now publishing it. You can wishlist it on Steam. I'll put a link in the video description. We don't actually have a release date for it yet, just sometime this year. But in order to publicise the launch, because now it's available on Steam, they're having a press event in Uxbridge, which is, I want to say North London, but I don't actually know. It's somewhere around London. There's an old World War II Battle of Britain Air Command bunker in Uxbridge. It was part of Fighter Command during World War II. And this is the location that Team 17 have picked to announce, well, not the release of the game, but the playable, at least, show it off to the press version of the game. I mean, it was pretty playable when I got my hands on it in alpha a couple of years ago. There was a limited amount of content. I should probably tell you actually what the game's about, shouldn't I? Because that's what Team 17 are inviting me up to Uxbridge for on Monday. So it's called Classified France 1944. And if you can imagine, it's kind of like XCOM, but World War II, where you command a team of special... I don't want to say special forces, because special forces weren't really a thing in World War II. I mean, you could argue that Ord Wingate's Chindits were, but they weren't really. Maybe the long-range desert group. But you're more spies than special operatives, like SOE agents, dropped into France prior to D-Day in order to, blow shit up and make things as difficult as possible for the Germans prior to the invasion. So that's what the game's about. You've got different agents, all with different skills and abilities. You'll have your sniper, your demolitionist, you'll have somebody who's good at seducing enemy officers, all that kind of stuff. And that's what Team 17 are inviting a whole bunch of people up to... I've forgotten how to speak English there for a moment. You wouldn't believe I do this for a living. That's what Team 17 are inviting a whole bunch... I've done it again. A whole bunch of people up to Uxbridge for in order to show off this new game. Which, if you think about it, you're like, why are they inviting me? I mean, I know what the game's about. I played it before it was even in alpha. James would come over and we'd go out for lunch and we'd sit and we'd talk about the next game he was going to do. We'd shoot ideas off each other. So, I've known about this game ever since before they started developing it, and yet I've been invited so Team 17 can announce this new game to me. I suspect James probably had something to do with that. He probably said, oh yeah, this Mighty Jingles fella, he's good. You should invite him up to have a look at this press event. Oh, okay, yeah, if you say so. So thanks, James. I mean, it's a free trip to London and a World War II air command bunker, which is going to be nice. Plus, as part of the promotion for this whole press event, there's a talk by renowned historian and writer James Holland. I don't know if you've heard of him. I hope you've heard of him. He's very, very good. I've got all of his books, although they're mostly on Kindle. But I do have a paperback copy of his Dam Busters book. So I'll be taking that along, getting him to sign it. And, I mean, even if... Because he's scheduled to speak for about, I think, an hour as part of the whole promotion. And even if what he's talking about isn't even remotely related to the content of the game, it's fine, because you're listening to James Holland talk for an hour, and he's amazing. Although it probably will be, because one of his books was, I think it was called Normandy 1944, D-Day and the Battle for France. So, yeah. We can safely say that James Holland has covered this subject, so he'll almost certainly have a few good things to say about it, and listening to him talk on any subject is going to be great, because he's just an amazing historian. Plus, even if James Holland wasn't there, I get to go up to London, see my friend James, and watch him proudly show off his new project that he's been working on for, wow, it must be at least 3 years now. I mean, we stay in touch over Discord and email, but I don't think I've actually sat down and seen him face to face in at least 6 months. So just getting to see him again is going to be great. Plus, obviously he's going to be proud to show off his new baby. He's been spending a long time working on it. And you can wishlist it now on Steam. It doesn't have a solid release date yet, but it will be released at some point this year. So there's not that long of this year left. And if they're showing it off to the press, it must be close to being in a releasable state. So it's probably only a couple of months away. I'll keep you updated, of course. So, in other news... Oh, just remember, wow. I would never have heard the end of this one if I hadn't told you about it. So, I don't know if any of you are aware, but the Salt Mines Discord server is 5 years old. And in recognition of this, the server admin, Grumper Salty, is running an art competition. The theme of the competition is, well, the salt mines, and me, of course. There are going to be some fairly substantial prizes for the winners, although we haven't actually decided what the prizes are going to be yet, so there will be some prizes. The only stipulations are that whatever art you produce, and don't worry if you can't draw, we've got that covered as well, but whatever art you produce must be related to me or the salt mines, or preferably both. And it must be a certain size. 960 by 540, which by an amazing coincidence also happens to be the size of the server banner, so you can probably guess what it's going to be used for if you win. The judges are going to include the amazingly talented Sammy Hallam, who did the intro splash screen for this episode of Mingles with Jingles, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, including, but not limited to, pretty much all of the emojis on the Salt Mine Discord server. And there's a special channel being created on the Discord server for you to submit your entries. Now, if you can't draw for toffee, don't worry. AI-generated art is acceptable. All we ask is that you attach a disclaimer with the name of the AI that you use to generate it. So, you know, if you can't draw, fine, that's not a problem. We're not really interested in how well you can draw. It's more to do with your ideas and your creativity. Although if you can draw and paint and so on, then by all means feel free to do that. The competition ends on midday, although I'm not sure which midday. Grumpet Salty, the server admin, lives in New Zealand, so possibly New Zealand midday. But either way, midday on the 29th of July. So you've got a week, slightly less than a week, to get something submitted. And best of luck to all of you, and congratulations to the winners, whoever they end up being. Hopefully, we'll actually have figured out what prizes we're going to give away. And I'm pretty sure that the winning entry will be used as the Salt Mines Discord server banner art. So, get cracking. Right, so, I think I've basically covered everything that I needed to talk about this week, so the only thing left remaining is to spend a few minutes shooting the shit. So what to talk about? How about that Aliens Dark Descent? That game is so good. It's proven to be remarkably popular on the channel as well. I mean, generally, you know, I put a World of Tanks or a World of Warships video up, it gets anything between 80 and 100,000 views. I put anything else up, and it's a lottery as to how successful it's going to be. Dredge was pretty successful, which is fine, because it was an amazingly good game. There's DLC for that, by the way, coming out. I mean, there was always going, with the game being as successful as it was, there was always going to be DLC for it. But again, I'm completely happy with that because the base game was so incredibly fun. Other games that I've put up, even if I enjoy playing them, they're not that successful. I mean, it's funny because it's like the engagement rate on some of the videos that I put up covering games that most of you aren't really interested in. There's way more engagement because the people who do watch them really, really enjoy them. Much more so than the World of Tanks or the World of Warships content. Bendy and the Dark Revival, for example, was one of those games. I loved that game. I thought it was very, very good, but hardly anybody watched the videos of it. They averaged around about 15,000 views for video. But the people that did watch those videos really enjoyed them. Sometimes you strike gold, you get a game like Dredge or a game like Warhammer 40k Demon Hunters, where they are still pretty popular. Although still nowhere near as popular as the World of Warships or the World of Tanks videos. I mean, you know, if I wanted to just make money, there'd be nothing but World of Warships and World of Tanks every day. But I'd get bored. So I have to do other stuff. Plus, World of Warships and World of Tanks aren't going to be there forever, so it's in my own best interest to diversify. But sometimes you strike gold, like with Dredge and Demon Hunters, and sometimes you don't, like with Bendy and the Dark Revival. Aliens Dark Descent appears to be one of the good ones. When I say good ones, I mean reasonably popular. Still nowhere near as popular as World of Warships, but popular enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, popular or not, I'm still doing them. I still did Bendy and the Dark Revival because I enjoyed doing it. And I'm not one of those guys that can fake enthusiasm for something that they're clearly not having fun playing. I mean, I could for a while, but you're not stupid. There's a certain... how can I put this? You all know what I'm talking about. You see people covering a different game every day. And there's something transparently artificial about the enthusiasm that they're projecting for whichever game they happen to be playing that day. I mean, they can't be that enthusiastic about every game they play. They're obviously faking it. And it's fine, it's fine. I mean, that works for them, but it wouldn't work for me. I have to actually enjoy what I'm playing. Otherwise, what's the point in putting a video up about it? Fortunately, the Dark Descent games do appear to be moderately popular, which is good, because I'm doing them anyway, because I enjoy them, but I feel kind of less guilty about depriving you of a World of Warships video and putting up a Dark Descent video instead, because there are enough of you who really seem to appreciate the Dark Descent videos that I don't feel guilty about depriving you of a World of Warships video. And I mean, I'm going to do it anyway, I'll just feel marginally less guilty about it. I've finished that game now, by the way. Holy shit, it's hard. I mean, it is tough. Even on easy difficulty setting, that game is going to kick your arse. And I've started a second playthrough purely for my own entertainment, incorporating lessons that I learnt from the first time around. But it is a seriously good game. I think, even with Dredge existing, I would say that Aliens Dark Descent is the best game I've played this year. I may be biased, of course, because it's Aliens, and, well, you know. I mean, I even liked Colonial Marines, and it was terrible. But I knew it was terrible while I was playing it, even though I was enjoying it because it was Aliens. But Dark Descent is a genuinely great game that also happens to be Aliens, so hooray. Anyway, plenty more of those videos coming. Anyway, that's it for today. Don't forget, art competition celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Salt Mines Discord server. You can wishlist Classified France 1944 on Steam. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you all had a great weekend. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.